he says, the Father sent me to preach the gospel, not necessarily to baptize, but to preach the gospel. And he said, for example, in the 13th chapter of Acts, he gives us, in that 47th verse, he says, assuring us that he knows what God has called him to do. He says, for example, that God said to him, I've placed you as a light for the Gentiles, that you may bring salvation to the ends of the earth. Paul knew exactly where he was in life once he was saved. He knew exactly what God was up to. He said, God says, I've called you to preach the gospel. And I have made you a light to the Gentiles because, first of all, the gospel was only being preached to the Jews. And so because of the way they treated him and because they rejected him, he just brushed it off of his clothes and said, I'm going to the Gentiles because that's exactly what God intended for him to do. So the issue is this. If I'm going to be able to keep on keeping on, I've got to know that I'm doing what God says do, how God says do it, when God says do it, and where he says do it. I don't even have to understand why. It's always good to understand why, and most of the time we will.